Hello guys, welcome to today's video. So this is part 2 ranking dinosaurs by media. We're moving on from Jurassic Park 3 to the Jurassic World trilogy now. So I'm sorry I took almost an year to make this. I wasn't really spending time making this, but yeah, I was just being lazy. But we have a lot of dinosaurs for the second part, so we're just gonna have to go through them really quickly. Okay, so like last time, we're gonna do for the time and for modern accuracy, but I think some of the later ones will only have the latter category. So let's get on with it. So for the only new dinosaur that was introduced in Jurassic World, crazy, right? This is the only actual dinosaur, a Apatosaurus. So for the time, it was actually pretty accurate. I would say the only problem is that it's missing the thumb spikes on its front legs. So for that, I would give it 9.5 out of 10. However, for modern standards, it's a little more outdated. First of all, the body, like the neck, the way the neck is connected to the body is a little wrong, as it would have been more straight rather than wonky. And also, it's definitely a little shrink wrapped and is missing some of its chonk. So, for that, I'd say it gets a 7.5 out of 10 for modern standards. Okay, so the first dinosaur we're going to talk about from Fallen Kingdom is the Stygimoloch. So, for the time, it was pretty decent. However, there are three things wrong with it. One, its tail was slightly shorter than the real thing. Two, its wrists are pronated. And three, it was a little bit bigger. So for the time, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. However, we have some unfortunate news for the modern variant. It might be considered as a juvenile Pachycephalosaurus. However, it's not really there, so we'll just go with the current Stygimoloch. So the only thing that has changed, I think, is the cheeks, where the new Stygimoloch seems to not have cheeks, while the Jurassic World one still did. So for that, I'm just gonna reduce the modern standard score to a 7 out of 10. So next, we have Sinoceratops. So for this one, I don't think much has changed from 2018 to now. So we're only gonna do one for the modern version. Okay, so first of all, the head is completely messed up. So the frill is quite larger, has two holes in it, it's a little differently shaped and curved. The head shape is a bit different, and also the nose horn is a little shorter. And lastly, I think the legs are a little more pillar-like in this one. Same with a lot of other herbivores and stuff. So for the final ranking accuracy, I'll give it 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Carnotaurus. So for the time, it's not that bad. There are three things. First of all, it's a bit too big. Second of all, its arms are separated with elbows instead of being like one little mitten connected to a ball socket. And third, its wrists are pronated. So for the time, I would give it an 8 out of 10. However, for modern standards, there's just one more thing, and that it's a little shrink wrapped. So for modern standards, I'll give the ranking as a 7 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Baryonyx. So for the time, it's not the best. So first of all, the head shape is a little wrong and it's missing the crest. Second of all, the wrists are pronated. So I think for those two things, I'll have to give it a 8 out of 10. So second of all, for the modern standards, now we have to add shrink wrapping and the absence of lips to the list. So the modern standards ranking will probably be a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Allosaurus. So there are two designs for this one in universe. The one from Fallen Kingdom, which is supposed to be a juvenile, and the one from Dominion, which is supposed to be an adult. So the time ranking, we'll use the Fallen Kingdom one, pretending that it is an adult, and for the Dominion one, we'll use that for modern standards. So first of all, for the Fallen Kingdom one, I'd say the only thing that's really wrong is the pronated wrists. So for the time, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. However, the Dominion one is not as good as it fixed the pronated wrists. However, the head is a little too boxy, it's a little too big, it has missing lips, and it's shrink wrapped. So I would put that down to a 7 out of 10. Okay, so our next dinosaur is the Nasutoceratops. So I'll only use modern standards because it's pretty new and I don't think anything has really changed about it. So I'd say the only things that are wrong are the concrete pillar-like legs instead of separated toes, and the body shapes here and there are a little like different. So for the ranking for accuracy, I'll give it a 8.8 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is Microceratus, and it also will only have one ranking. So first of all, it is a little bit shrink wrapped, and the head shape is a bit wrong, and it's also missing the quills. So for a final ranking, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Iguanodon, and we're also only going to do one modern standards accuracy ranking like the last two. So it's pretty good. The only problems is that first of all the wrists are pronated. It's a little bit shrink wrapped and the back is a little different. It kind of looks like it has two humps. So for that, I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Dreadnoughtus. So there's a little bit wrong with it. First of all, the foot is a little more elephant like. It's a bit shrink wrapped, and the head is a little bit off. So I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. So the next dinosaur is the Oviraptor. So it's pretty good. I'd say the only things that are wrong with it is that it has pronated wrists. It's missing some of the protofeathers on its arms, and it seems teensy weensy shrink wrapped. So for that, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Morus intrepidus. So it was quite smaller than the accurate version, and I think I saw it having pronated wrists in one scene. So for that, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Pyroraptor. So first of all, it has pronated wrists. It's quite bigger, and it also has a quite different skull shape. Honestly, the wrong one. And the big thing, it being able to swim on in like freezing water really fast, which is quite an unrealistic behavior. So for that, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Atrociraptor, whose design I find pretty intriguing. So first of all, it's a little bit shrink wrapped. That's the smallest thing. Next of all, it's much bigger. It doesn't have feathers. It has pronated wrists, and I think they were going a little faster than they probably should have been able to. So for that, I'll give it a 5.9 out of 10. Okay, so the next dinosaur is the Therizinosaurus. So first of all, its head is a little too boxy. Second of all, its wrists are pronated. Third of all, it's a little bit shrink wrapped. And fourth of all, its claws were like iron steel and were able to cut through the Giganotosaurus completely, even though in real life they would have been much more fragile. So for that, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so the last dinosaur on the list is the Giganotosaurus. So even though some things have changed for the Giganotosaurus, they're kind of interchangeable. Like the one thing has two things have changed are one, we have found the Gigachachin on it, and two, there are estimates for even larger Giganotosaurus. However, those things kind of interchange on the Giganotosaurus if we take either one, so we're just going to do one ranking anyways. Okay, so next is the crazy amount of osteoderms and stuff, and the slightly wrong shaped tail. And then we have the slight shrink wrapping and lack of lips. So for that, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Okay, guys, so that's all the dinosaurs. I might do one part for like rebirth and like the shows and other stuff later. So that's the end of the video, I guess. Bye.